Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green.
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
And we are joined today with Megan Harris. Megan is a candidate for Fulton County Commission District 2. Thank you and welcome, Megan.
We out here, man. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Happy Halloween. Got my Halloween swag on.
All right.
I have on no orange. So for our listeners, I have to tell you that Megan is a native Atlantan. There's not a lot of you, but thank you.
Right.
She is homegrown. She has a BA in finance from University of West Georgia, and an MBA. In her professional career, she's been a financial advisor and she is an independent broker. And so, Megan, you are now running for county commission after having been a community activist and advocate. So tell us, why are you running? Why are you making that transition?
So I got tired of shaking my head and wanted to be the part of the change I want to see. So instead of looking and complaining and gossiping to my friends about things that I was seeing around me, I activated. And I got further in, I got further educated about my community as well. And it kind of had a snowball effect. Mm-hmm. And I also call it a little bit of God's plot twist as well.
Love.
A little bit of God's plot twist.
Yeah. So, Megan, I know that in some of your work in the community, you've been involved with the education force in Sandy Springs, Leadership Perimeter, and you've also worked as a precinct poll manager. Can you tell us, and you've also worked with the local Chamber of Commerce. These are all like very different aspects of community involvement. Can you tell us like how they prepared you for working on the county commission?
Absolutely. So leading up with the community, like with the youth, that's something that's always been a common, I've always been tapped in. I've always been tapped into that particular artery of ministry in the community. I used to, when I was with Bank of America several years ago, be a part of Operation Hope, going and visiting different schools to teach financial literacy. My background is I'm a finance major. I'm a financial advisor. That is my trade and my profession. And so it continued to grow from there. With Education Force, we have a mentor-mentee model, and I was able to get matched up with a lot of great kids. And the reason why that's important to me is that we always have to make sure we can communicate with each other. Yeah. So that is like selfish curiosity of how we're going to continue to communicate intergenerationally. Here we go. That word is not going to take me out. Okay, y'all.
I thought you was trying to be like Jesse Jackson and make up your own.
So that was something that was definitely important for me to make sure that we know how we're going to continue to communicate with each other, and that
somebody else wants to get in on the interview.
I know. We're a dog family, okay? They're all around. There's like 3 dogs in here. Excuse me. And then also with the Rotary and the Chamber of Commerce. The reason why those things are important is because of business succession planning. So as a financial professional, my base clientele includes individuals and small business owners. And I like the smaller profile of leadership with our small business owners, particularly because, one, we can get things done a lot quicker than having to consult with the board. But then furthermore, it's an infusion of education and introduction to a conversation of really talking about that what's next chapter. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you looking for? What's your definition of legacy? What are you looking for with the end result of your business? Is it going to be passed down to a family member, or like a child, a junior, or little mama, if you will, or you have a partner that you're going to hand it over to or sell it to, or maybe you're building this up to sell it to anybody who wants to pick up the baton and keep it moving. There's a lot of different outcomes for small business owners. The thing is you got to have a plan.
Yes.
Have a plan. You have to identify if there's going to be talent that you're transferring this to, making sure you're investing in their competencies. That triggers money, right? But it also triggers you making sure that you're paying attention to your team to find out who is going to be that person as well. And with the Chamber of Commerce, the reason why that's so important is that we're connectors. We are connectors, we're educators, we're facilitators. For example, you have a lot of complementary businesses out here. I like working alongside with my local business owners too, as an advisor for gifts for my clientele. Maybe tips for something maybe they're looking for as well on a personal level. So those things, they match up, and that's how business thrive. I truly believe small business owners are the lifeblood of community. And we have high schoolers out there that need to walk into these businesses. So when we do continue the conversation of succession planning, that's a part of it. We have seniors out here and college educated kids as well, or kids who are interested in a particular specialty. It can be a vocation. It can be a trade. Heck, we need more electricians, right? You need everybody's a plumber. These are things that we need on a day-to-day basis.
And so all of these are very
go ahead.
I'm sorry, but all of these make you a very well-rounded candidate. And I'm interested in your Chamber of Commerce experience that you're speaking about, because Kat, my sister here, also has worked tirelessly with a local chamber here in Gwinnett County. And so the two of you have that same experience. And I think having that real world experience of how business works and what business needs makes you both great candidates, because you understand, like, business is the economic driver in a community, because that's the tax base. And so the more businesses and the more quality businesses that you have that are bringing tax base into the community, and you understand like what businesses need and what they require to be able to thrive and do well. So I like that about both of your experiences. Kat, did you want to talk about the chamber a little bit?
I love my sister. She in it. That's one thing, having a friend that's an attorney, honey. She know how to ask those penetrating questions, but you're absolutely right. And it's our job, being members of the chamber, to make sure that we flush out the needs and communicate and have a relationship. I'm huge on relationships, and I feel like some businesses get overlooked in that mesh of building relationships. And that's unfair, because a lot of the smaller businesses, the mom and pop shops and so forth, that has a small workforce, do not get the support that they need. Therefore, they do not receive the dollars that they need. Even when we speak into agriculture, which we talked a little bit about that with other show members on our show, about agriculture and how they're getting overlooked. People who are veterans, people who are women. There are so many demographics that are literally being jumped over, with millions of dollars that are available to pour into these businesses. So I love the position that I'm in with Greater Eastside Chamber of Commerce as membership director, so that we can reach those businesses and get them connected to those resources. That's our number one job. It's not about, pushing out our brand. We're nothing without our businesses. And so I pride myself on that. And so you're absolutely right, making sure that they have education, training. And if you don't want to go to college and you have access to those trades, plumbing, electrician, we actually have an insurance adjuster. People were coming to Atlanta from out of state when we had the hurricane, the past two. Oh, look at your little baby. Look at your little baby. That's a business.
This is the culprit. I'm sorry. I had to show you who, don't let her cuteness fool you.
For those that are listening, Megan is holding up this adorable dog. What's the mix?
Her name is Greta, and her mix is, she's a miniature, like a Tawini. A Chewini.
Wawa and a
that's what she's called. She's called a Chewini, a long-haired Chewini. So she has a longer.
Hold her up higher if you can. Look at her. Aww.
So for those who can't see, she's absolutely adorable. This Chewini, she's a looks like a long-haired Chihuahua.
Yes.
Yeah. Chihuahua, right?
Yeah, it does. That's a great analogy. She looks like a long-haired Chihuahua, a little bit longer kind of like a wiener dog. So
yeah,
like
a
a
dog.
hybrid.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Great way to
Beautiful,
describe
beautiful.
her.
Well, we love animals around here, girl. We can talk about animals all day.
All day.
But, you know, I'll just end it with that, with the chamber. I'm so glad to be a part of that process. And I'm also glad that you're in that space too, because together we can do a lot for Georgians across the whole state when
Amen.
we connect with other chambers throughout. But to lead into that for me, I like to know a little bit more about who you are. Too often we run for office and people are confused as to who should I vote for? What policies are they going to do? You're one vote, and we want to support you in that endeavor. But I also want to get a touch of who you are as Megan Harris. What makes you get up in the morning? What makes you smile? And what do you do when you're not out there in these streets knocking doors and doing stuff for other people?
Well, the answer right now is that I'm hopefully sleeping. I'm waiting for that moment of a good night's rest.
You have to wait until November 6th to sleep.
Right.
Look, I know, and we're driving. That's what all this is about. We're like, look, we're doing water. We're fasting. We're doing all the things. We're trying to do our CMOS, make sure we stay healthy. I got someone on my team that makes sure I'm good on that. But to answer your question, a little bit more about me. So I'm born and raised right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And there we go. I'm born right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I'm an AT alien and I love it. I grew up in Decatur, College Park area. I bought my first home in 2011 here in Sandy Springs. And I was super excited. I am an alumni of West Georgia University. University of West Georgia, and also Phoenix. I got tracked on to get my MBA there. So things about Megan, I am extremely driven individual. So I am one to run towards the fight, not away from it. I am someone who hates bullies. I am someone who problem solve. I'm someone who likes to to connect. That's probably the best word I can use. I'm a big time connector. I believe in referral business. I believe in connecting people to resources, connecting people to each other. So if I'm not able to help you, I'm like, hey, I got a guy. Because part of my personality is I don't know strangers. Like I don't. I go anywhere. I'm going to befriend somebody, and now you're my friend. You don't have any. You can't get
right.
No takey backies. Like
right.
So, and I love those things. But growing up with my family, like we were in the church, we did community service. So that was instilled and ingrained in my brother and I early on. And it was a common denominator in our life and exposed us to a lot, exposed us to, how choices and decisions can affect your future, how easy someone can be homeless or unsheltered, how we put it now, and how you can, and then also how you can survive and dig out of those bad situations and have testimony to inspire others as well. I will also share that we've gone through some tough chapters as a family in the most recent years as well, which include losing my brother last year to suicide. And when we have that conversation, and he was also a military man. He was a Marine. And once a Marine, always a Marine. And he went in straight after high school from North Springs High School and was in for 16 years. And that is something else that tethers into that last topic that we were just talking about, not only with the chamber, but one of the projects that I want to also highlight, including the chamber and our local city leadership and county commission as well, is having a better bridge, a better pathway for men and women, veterans that are transitioning from military to civilian life.
Okay.
Specifically around job employment, because there's such a gap in understanding what one's MOS truly transfers as those talent, skills, and ability, what those transferable skills look like in the private sector. It's as simple as the name mismatch. We just don't understand that what this MOS is saying here actually matches up for my need here, and we should be connecting, but we're missing.
And MOS is basically the job title. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. I think things military occupation specialty, I think is what it breaks down to be. Excuse me if I'm wrong. But that is the job that you would have in the military. But that's something that's near and dear to my heart because it came so close to home. So that highlights mental health and the importance of that, providing safe spaces for our men and their mental health. The CDC has been doing reporting for the past couple of years. And last year, when I was looking at it, the numbers had quadrupled with men. And that's before we get down into the weeds of the demographics with race. But it stops you at the door that across the board, our men's suicide rate has quadrupled since the pandemic. And that's something we need to pay attention to. So those are things that kind of like a string that happened in my personal life that has now been tethered to now, my professional, my activism lifestyle as well, and pushing for that because of our experiences and being so personal. But it's also, I feel very firmly that it's fixable, and I want to be a solution.
Amen. That's why I wanted people to hear who you are, because a lot of times people run and really don't have receipts. And when you don't understand the purpose, the reason why people do what they do, you will then have a better respect for why they're in this race. They're not in this race for no other reason other than to bring solutions to problems that plague our nation. And so I thank you for being vulnerable. I thank you for sharing that. I love you, sister, and I truly appreciate that, because a lot of people, when you share your truth, you liberate others to do the same thing. So your testimony has spoken and saved someone right now. I claim that in the name of Jesus. Thank you.
Amen. And I firmly do, like, just from as my spiritual growth over the years as well, firmly believe that the completion of a miracle includes that last chapter of the testimony. That's the handoff. So you can get on the other side of your problem, or you can persevere through the storm and be 5/6 of the way, right? That last step is to testify, because God doesn't waste suffering. So he put you through that experience for a purpose. There's a reason. And I know it's hard sometimes when you're in the middle of that storm, you can't see it. Yes, and he knows that, but that's why we have Jesus, right? So
you got to back up, because you said something. You said God doesn't waste a what?
God does not waste suffering.
God doesn't waste suffering. That's the word right there.
Yes,
I wanted to come back to that. But you had me when you said that the education for Sandy Springs, your work that you do with the young people, was your ministry. That was your ministry. So when you mentioned that, I was like, okay, this is a servant leader.
Yes.
And one of the things about Kat and I is that we will always put a servant leader in the love seat, because we are drawn to people who are of service and who are going into this public arena to be of service to others. So that means a lot to us. And so when my dear sister said to me, oh, we need to have so-and-so on, and I was like, well, what do you know about her? And so if she puts her stamp of approval on you, you good with me.
Yeah. And I am extremely grateful. And it's wild when you do it can come. Let me say this: it can come across as a double-edged sword. So when you invest in yourself, and you invest in your spiritual growth, your personal growth, and maturity as well, the consequence of that is that you can't unsee when God starts, and you can't unhear, because you've graduated to that level. So new level, new armor, new devil, new maturity level, like all of that culminates. So even when you're scared, and I won't even lie to you, when the word came to me to throw my hat into this ring to run for this office, I'm a planner, right? So I'm a pretty practical person and have a pragmatic approach. So it didn't make sense on paper. I didn't have a huge runway, or like what you would traditionally think of one. Let me put it that way. with grooming a huge team and starting the who's who conversations like the year ahead and stuff like that. And people do that. And that just wasn't a part of my path, my path. In short, like I consulted with my mom. We were just coming on the heels because it just my brother's passing displaced her. So she was moving up here. She was for someplace. It was tumultuous. It was just, we were tired. We were weary. Our spirits were weary, but it was so strong. Like I was scared. Now I've been many a night on my back deck with a glass of wine saying, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure?" It was someone else with the same initials. And he was like, "No, it's you." So one, be careful what you pray for, because my prayer was, "God, I want you to use all of me." You. And he's like, "Got it." Little did I know what that would actually look like. And he'll give you different gifts, but he'll also have different ways for, depending on the type of, depending on his child. Right. So, because he knows us so well, he designed us. So he knows I'm an overthinker. So what he took from me, he's like, I'm going to materialize these steps in real time, right in front of you. You're not going to have terribly much foresight, if you will, because you don't need it. Leave that with me. So, but that was what he needed to do with me, because he knows that I'll be up, live in my head. I'll be all up in here trying to pick it apart, try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
But he's like, I need you to stop.
If that's not a testimony right there.
Right.
If that's
and he's not gonna bring you to the fight if he hasn't given you what you needed to equip you to be in the battle. He's not gonna do that.
Amen.
And remove what you think you need, the plan, for you to step forward on faith and give all the glory to God when you are obedient to what God has already placed in front of you. You're not supposed to try to understand it. You just need to be obedient. There you go. There you go.
It is.
Lay your feet. Let's say I lay this at your feet. Come on now. Anyway, look, did we turn this into
we turned into a home sermon.
That's what we do.
Every day.
That's what we do. And I just want to remind our listeners that this show is airing on Friday, November 1st, that early voting in person ends for this general election November 1st, which is on Friday, which will be today. So if you have not already, get to the polls today, because if you haven't, then you have to stand in line on the general election day, which is Tuesday, November 5th. So what do we want to do? We want you there today, which is November 1st, Friday, voting. Stay in line, because the polls are open until 7 o'clock. If you're in line by 7, you will be able to vote.
Yes.
Go to My Voters page, type in the county in which you live in, answer those questions, find your early voting poll, and make sure you get there before 7. If you are in line before 7 o'clock, do not move. Stay in line and make sure you cast your ballot. And remember, November the 1st is the last day of early voting. And please get out and vote. Bring a friend and tell a neighbor, and make sure everybody lottie-dottie who's registered to vote gets out and vote. All right. And so
one thing that I would like to plug in there for as a PSA as well. While I was out canvassing, some folks are open to us checking. You can definitely check on, if you're in Fulton County, Fulton Votes. There's an app. You can look it up on your iPhones or wherever you get your apps from. But we have encountered some folks that get an error message. Please don't freak out about that. Does that mean you can't vote? Not necessarily. You have a right to still go to your normal voting precinct and go through the normal process. They will inform you if you need to fill out a provisional ballot or not. You'll need to follow up to make sure it counts, but you can still exercise your right to participate in your democracy and voting as well. But I just want to give a heads up to those, if you happen to follow those instructions on the Secretary of State, my voter page and you get an error message or something doesn't look right, you can immediately call that department if it's a weekday. But because we are in a short time frame, go directly to your precinct, with your ID, and they will be able to navigate you through that. And provisional ballot will probably be what you would need to fill out if you're not able to be brought up electronically.
And I do want to I want to add to that too, because sometimes people don't understand this. So you can vote. So today, which is Friday, you can vote at an early precinct site.
Yes.
On the day of, which is November 5th, next on Tuesday, you have to go to the precinct that is on your precinct card. So if you don't have a precinct card, go to your My Voter page and it will tell you where you can go vote on the day of. And see, I don't even remember where my day of voting is because I always vote early.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
right.
And for those of you who are wondering, like, what is on the ballot besides the president, we're going to show you a sample ballot, and we're using Fulton County because Megan is in Fulton County.
That's right.
So you have your president. We have president. Several people are running, and every seat in the House of Representatives is on the ballot. The U.S. House of Representatives. And then you also have state Senate and state House representatives that are on the ballot this time as well. So it's very important that you go. And then if you're in Fulton County, we're voting for DA. The current DA, Fonnie Willis, has a Republican challenger. The clerk of court doesn't have a challenger. There's the Solicitor General is on the ballot, but there is no challenger. And then for District 2, you can see here, Bob Ellis, the incumbent, is being challenged by Megan Harris. And it's also important that you stay on the ballot. Stay on the ballot. Vote down everything. There are some proposed constitutional amendments. There's 2 actually. And there's a statewide referendum question. So go through the ballot, make sure you check off and vote everything all the way down, even if it's dog catcher. Stay on that ballot. Did any one of you had any comments about the ballot?
Go
ahead.
I was wondering, I see that in Fulton County, your municipal election is on the ballot for city council.
There's a special election going on in East Point, I believe, for the Fulton County. So
yeah,
I think special election East Point. Yeah, these are special elections for City of Atlanta and East Point that will show up on theirs. The only other thing that I would bring up for folks that are coming out to vote is, yes, we do have some resolutions, questions that you would need to pay attention to. Please, you can go to Ballotpedia. You can look up on WABE. They did a great job with kind of breaking those things down as well. They have to do with the homestead exemption, and a couple other things, some appointments that the governor can make as well. So please, I would not recommend you wait to look at these the very first time going into the ballot box, because the way that they are worded is
very confusing.
Very confusing. And that's by design. That's something else that we are fighting. So
right.
we can better voter representation and our voices are heard clearly. So that means that we need to be asked clear questions as well. I'm firm believer in that. But yeah, definitely make a plan. You are absolutely empowered. And I encourage you and implore you to, if you have a printer, print off your sample ballot. You can fill it out printed and you can take it with you when you're casting your ballot. So you make sure, if you do have write-ins, we do have a handful of write-ins. So if there's a candidate on there that you were interested in and you don't want to get to ballot box and forget their name because it may not show up because they're a write-in candidate, make sure that's a plan that you may want to put together on your sample ballot to have that written in. So you get that correctly, counted correctly in there as well.
That's an excellent point.
The one thing I would like to add too is when individuals look at those amendments and you look at your sample ballot, it tells you if it's House resolution or HD and so forth. Please take the time to go actually look at the entire document and it will show you what has been amended. It typically will be in bold, black and bold in the actual amendment. The amendments are not super long. Don't be intimidated by them. They're only a few pages long, but I encourage you to read. I don't know if my personal, I'm just going to say it. When you look at the tax court, and when you read it in its entirety,
yes,
it has the opportunity for the governor to appoint the judges. Cool, great. It's backlogged. We need some judges so we can get it through. That's kind of like the push that I hear people saying. For me, when you read further, the judges don't have term limits.
No.
So for me, for Kat, I'm speaking for Kat, not conversations with Kat, not Karen, not Megan. I'm speaking for me. No position should have 0 term limits. Like, that means you could be a judge forever. Negative. For me.
Yeah.
I think everybody should, okay, you were appointed, you served your time, we got to appoint somebody else. Because I know somebody who ran against a judge in the county in which I live in, who had never been challenged in how many years, sis? Is it 30?
22.
Okay,
yeah,
that's 30.
that happens. Mm-hmm.
And that is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And that's what hits you first.
And so it's not to say anybody's bad, anybody's anything. I just believe that we always need to have fresh thoughts, fresh ideas, people who are more culturally competent, at least culturally humble. And when you have people who've been in a spot for 30 years or longer, think about other positions that we have in this nation that people sit there for a long period of time. So please just do your due diligence, go read it for yourself and make your own decision that best serves you and your family. That's the last thing I want to say. But Megan, what's your website? How can people learn more about you, donate, all that great stuff?
Absolutely. So my website is Megan, MEGAN, 4, FultonD2.org.
Is it what county? Is what county?
Fulton. Yeah. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Again. And your email, where they can email you if someone has a question between now and Tuesday?
Yes. So absolutely. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me at info@Megan, MEGAN, 4, FultonD2.org. My Instagram handle is also Megan, MEGAN, 4, Fulton D2 as well. And just real quick, for those who are curious about those resolutions, I brought them up real quick so you guys can look them up. You have HR Bill 1022. You also have the House Resolution 598, which is the one that Kat was just talking about. And then lastly, the last one that I saw on mine as well was House Bill 808. And that is the one that had to deal with tangible personal property and homestead. So you may look those items up. They should pop up pretty immediately. You can look at the actual drafts that come up with the state of Georgia as well. But those will be the 3 resolutions that I know I saw on my ballot, on my sample ballot as well.
Amen.
So two are proposed constitutional amendments, and one is a statewide referendum question regarding raising the exemptions for personal tax exemptions. And these exemptions, just I don't know if anybody's really interested in this, but these exemptions would also apply for bankruptcy, if I'm not mistaken, because these are the amounts. I used to do bankruptcies. Mm-hmm. These are the amounts that they would have for personal property that you would exempt in Georgia. So I believe that these amounts would also raise them for bankruptcy, personal property exemptions as well. But that's neither here nor there.
Right. But that's a good point.
No, that's a good point. I actually looked it up myself, tangible personal property, just to make sure I was comprehending that correctly. And I read it a couple of times. So, but yeah, you're spot on. It does include that with the tangible personal property.
And the reason why that's important is because some other states have very generous amounts for personal property that's exempt from your creditors than Georgia does. So yeah, that part.
Yeah. And it helps business owners too. Yeah.
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 It does. So, that I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and, you know, just implore everyone to go out. If you have not already voted early, get your voting done today. So you don't have to wait in line on Tuesday, because we don't know how long those lines are going to be.
Yep.
And the other thing too is get that ballot in so it's safe and secure with your local board of elections.
Yep.
Because I don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday. I really don't. I'm waiting for some tomfoolery to pop off, basically.
We're gonna pray against it, but yeah, we think it's gonna be an excitable time, because we are making history, though. I mean, we have some record numbers that are happening right now, which is super exciting. But at the same time, it's something else to keep in mind, that these numbers that we're seeing, these are supposed to be our normal levels.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to be our normal level, because this has to do, it's so intimately affecting every American that's here, and their families and their extended families, and if they have anybody, and if you're an immigrant that's here as well, with whatever status you may have, this is coming. This is their front yard, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Yep. These are crazy times, and we encourage everyone to exercise your fundamental constitutional right to vote. I always tell this, that neither one of my grandfathers, who lived in the state of Florida, both died in the 1950s. They owned property, had been Floridians all of their lives, never had the opportunity to vote. They both lived in rural counties, one in Central Florida, one in North Florida, and they never had the opportunity to vote in their lives, even though they owned land, had families, never had the opportunity to vote because they weren't allowed to register to vote in their county. So so it was very important in my household growing up. I saw my parents going to vote. They took me down the street to the polls, to the park when they were voting. And so I, in turn, did the same for my kids.
I know that's right.
With me to vote. And I tell them all the time, neither one of your great grandfathers on my side got the opportunity to vote. So I want them to never forget that. And so I remind people of that constantly, because 1950 wasn't that long ago.
They want you to think that it's so far ago, because that's
right,
in black and white and have it all like it's all old and everything, but no, it is not, so thank you for sharing that very important fact, because there are other people who have actually stated the same, that they haven't. They tell their stories. These are seasoned history makers who are sharing their testimonies about how hard it was for them to cast their vote 50, 60, 70 years ago or whatnot. So
they had poll taxes in Mississippi and Alabama in the 1960s.
It was a lady who talked about that. That. May I want to leave you with the last word.
Well, we can go on so many different rabbit holes here. But in conclusion here, I definitely want people to use this opportunity as a family engagement opportunity, to Karen's point, because what we do, we emulate what we see growing up. Right. No, we don't always listen, but we'll definitely follow the leader. We do. Yeah. That's just human nature. So please get your kids involved. Take them with you. Let them stand in line with you, and experience all of this and the importance of it as well. And then have a party with your family afterwards. Like, celebrate it. Do something ceremonial around it. To commemorate that as well. So it really seals in. And keep that as a family tradition going forward. Slowly start engaging yourself in your local politics and your local government. We don't do a great job in our country with emphasizing local government education in our curriculum. You can easily go from kindergarten to getting a doctorate in our country and not take one class seriously after past a half a semester. Unless that's your major. Right. You don't know anything about your local government, what it does. And then you also don't have any financial literacy either. So we're in the same boat there. So, and those things are related, because when we're talking about our tax dollars and whatnot, that's hitting your pocket. So those things are connected at the hip. So that would probably be my best takeaway. Like, it's okay, it won't happen overnight. Go with a buddy. If you're single, go with a friend of yours, and hey, let's go to just check out the city council meeting. And yeah, some of them are boring, but just that one little piece will just keep a decent tempo and try it out. Just try it out with a friend and have a conversation about it and see where it takes you.
I love it.
You.
I love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for running. Thank you for putting your name on the ballot and putting yourself out there. You know, we need good leaders in those seats, making good choices for the people and not self-interest. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for being on Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
We over here, all of us are over here cheesing y'all at each other because we're all like clicking. I just want to get, for those who don't see it, we're like, oh man, this could easily turn into like hours of chat. Okay.
Right.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, we ask that, you know, if you have liked this episode, that you subscribe to Conversations with Karen and Kat on YouTube, on Facebook, IG, and wherever you get your podcast, because we're on several platforms. Yes, subscribe wherever you find us, and you can always go to karenandkat.com. As always, thank you for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.